The army encamped around the castle, and the Earl restored to the Countess the 2 earldoms he had taken from her, as a ransom for his life, and for his freedom he gave her the half of his own dominions, and all his gold, and his silver, and his jewels, besides hostages. And Owain took his departure. And the Countess and all her subjects besought him to remain. But Owain chose rather to wander through distant lands and deserts. And as he journeyed, he heard a loud yelling in a wood, and it was repeated a second and a third time. And Owain went towards the spot, and behold, a huge craggy mound in the middle of the wood, on the side of which was a grey rock, and there was a cleft in the rock, and a serpent was within the cleft. And near the rock stood a black lion, and every time the lion sought to go thence, the serpent darted towards him to attack him. And Owain unsheathed his sword, and drew near to the rock, and as the serpent sprung out, he struck him with his sword, and cut him in two. And he dried his sword, and went on his way as before. But behold, the lion followed him, and played about him, as though it had been a greyhound that he had reared. They proceeded thus throughout the day until the evening. And when it was time for Owain to take his rest, he dismounted, and turned his horse loose in a flat and wooded meadow. And he struck fire, and when the fire was kindled, the lion brought him fuel enough to last for 3 nights. And the lion disappeared. And presently the lion returned, bearing a fine large roebuck. And he threw it down before Owain, who went towards the fire with it. And Owain took the roebuck, and skinned it, and placed collops of its flesh upon skewers around the fire. The rest of the buck he gave to the lion to devour. While he was doing this, he heard a deep sigh near him, and a second, and a third. And Owain called out to know whether the sigh he heard proceeded from a mortal. And he received answer that it did. "Who art thou?" said Owain. "Truly," said the voice, "I am Luned, the handmaiden of the Countess of the Fountain." "And what dost thou here?" said Owain. "I am imprisoned," said she, "on account of the knight who came from Arthur's court, and married the Countess. And he stayed a short time with her, but he afterwards departed for the court of Arthur, and he has not returned since. And he was the friend I loved best in the world. And 2 of the pages of the Countess's chamber traduced him, and called him a deceiver. And I told them that they 2 were not a match for him alone. So they imprisoned me in the stone vault, and said that I should be put to death, unless he came himself to deliver me by a certain day. And that is no further off than the day after tomorrow, and I have no one to send to seek him for me. And his name is Owain, the son of Urien." "And art thou certain that if that knight knew all this, he would come to thy rescue?" "I am most certain of it," said she. When the collops were cooked, Owain divided them into two parts, between himself and the maiden. And after they had eaten, they talked together until the day dawned. And the next morning Owain enquired of the damsel, if there was any place where he could get food and entertainment for that night. "There is, lord," said she. "Cross over yonder, and go along the side of the river, and in a short time thou wilt see a great castle, in which are many towers. And the Earl who owns that castle is the most hospitable man in the world. There thou mayest spend the night." Never did sentinel keep stricter watch over his lord than the lion that night over Owain. And Owain accoutred his horse, and passed across by the ford, and came in the sight of the castle. And he entered it, and was honourably received. And his horse was well cared for, and plenty of fodder was placed before him. Then the lion went and laid down in the horse's manger, so that none of the people of the castle dared to approach him. The treatment which Owain met with there was such as he had never known elsewhere, for every one was as sorrowful as though death had been upon him. And they went to meat. And the Earl sat upon one side of Owain, and on the other his only daughter. And Owain had never seen any more lovely than she. Then the lion came and placed himself between Owain's feet, and he fed him with every kind of food that he took himself. And he never saw anything equal to the sadness of the people. In the middle of the repast, the Earl began to bid Owain welcome. "Then," said Owain, "behold, it is time for thee to be cheerful." "Heaven knows," said the Earl, "that it is not thy coming that makes us sorrowful, but we have cause enough for sadness and care." "What is that?" said Owain. "I have two sons," replied the Earl, "and yesterday they went to the mountains to hunt. Now there is on the mountain a monster, who kills men and devours them. And he seized my sons, and to morrow is the time he has fixed to be here, and he threatens that he will then slay my sons before my eyes, unless I will deliver into his hands this my daughter. He has the form of a man, but in stature he is no less than a giant." "Truly," said Owain, "that is lamentable. And which wilt thou do?" "Heaven knows," said the Earl. "It will be better that my sons should be slain against my will, than I should voluntarily give up my daughter to him, to ill treat and destroy." Then they talked about other things, and Owain stayed there that night. The next morning they heard an exceeding great clamour, which was caused by the coming of the giant with the two youths. And the Earl was anxious both to protect his castle, and to release his two sons. Then Owain put on his armour, and went forth to encounter the giant. And the lion followed him. And when the giant saw that Owain was armed, he rushed towards him, and attacked him. And the lion fought with the giant much more fiercely than Owain did.